Welcome back to our special coverage, Seeking Justice in Ferguson. We are joined by a powerhouse panel, Matthew Fogg, Clarence Page, and Reverend Cedric Harmon. I want to tell you what Governor Jay Nixon said, because we were talking about the racial issue in Missouri. Quote, "This feels like an old wound that has been hit again. The key is this ultimately getting to some of these deeper problems. These are deep and existing problems not only in Missouri, but in America. Let us not forget what the Missouri Compromise was about. Missouri might not have been in the Deep South, but you get to be a slave state, and Maine, you get to be a free state. And it has been a powder keg for racial stuff since the beginning of time."
Right. That's right. And see, they should have known that. That's the point I'm making. I always say this to every community I go into when I'm doing my policing. I said, we have to prevent it before it happens. And we can already see from the whole culture of policing, it's off. And so, but again, once you say that and once you take on that notion, a lot of people say, don't fix it if nothing's happened. Soon as something happens in the community, all of that rage comes out of the community, what we're seeing. Because they've been seeing, there are a lot of people that's been going through this stuff, being shot, all kinds of questionable police tactics that we just never hear about.
That's exactly right.
That's not on video, only because you got these cameras and stuff today. So the bottom line is that's all built up in a lot of people. And right now I can tell you here and now, every incident that occurs now that's questionable, whether somebody's got a chokehold or whether they shoot someone, it's going to be a powder keg.
That's right. That's
around
right.
the country. Now this is all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, all true. I can't emphasize enough, though, this is not just a Missouri problem.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely.
I've been
as the governor said.
I don't mind telling you, I've been covering riots since I was an intern at the Dayton Journal-Herald in 1968. And the pattern still continues, and I'm sure you will agree. In most of these cases, it starts with a police incident.
That's right.
Right.
And you'll find that the same kind of cycle happens every time that the authorities try to put a lid on things.
Yes.
It just makes it worse.
Yes.
Right.
When you get out and reach out to some community policing, it makes things better. And we are right now in a situation where Missouri, we hope that this was over with Rodney King in LA in '92.
Right.
No, it goes on and on because we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. But what troubles me about the National Guard, I always remember in '67 in Detroit, the worst riot we had, there were about 47 people killed, and that almost all of them by the National Guard. All the reports about snipers, like with New Orleans, the reports about snipers, et cetera, all proved to be false. And I mean, of course, the National Guard was different than the Vietnam era. Most of them didn't go into combat. They were not battle hardened like the airborne were. Now it's the opposite. The National Guard is more likely to be battle hardened. But
and so you agree that the National Guard, that it was
absolutely
not a good move.
Not a good move.
Okay.
No, I don't see bringing in the National. You don't have to bring in the National Guard. Again, I saw an opportunity there that they missed, where at one point in time the community leaders say, we will police, we will stop these folks from looting stores, let us handle it. And they sort of just said, no, we want to use a police presence. And then when I saw the other day, they brought in the long sticks, man, which we talking about going back to the civil rights days. When you look at those long sticks, I mean, I was reminiscing because I grew up in that time. Seeing those long sticks in the Alabama State Police and the Patmos Bridge, the and all of those things they were using. So again, it's that whole image. And how are you going to sit up there and have that image out there? And even throwing smoke. If you're not going to throw tear gas, why are you throwing smoke? It has the image of tear gas. People are going to be saying it's tear gas.
Right.
So again, you don't ignite the situation. You just sort of back off, calm down, and say, okay, let's let the community, we tell the community, we want you to police, your community leaders, you police this place, and if you need our assistance, we'll stand by and ask for our assistance.
But I think part of the problem is I've not really seen one person who is identified as a community leader there, and I think that's part of the problem.
Too.
It's a huge problem when you don't have the voices of reason really stepping up and saying, let's calm down and understand on both sides. Police are trying to do their job, but the citizens are rightfully upset. They're angry, they're frustrated, and also there are those that will take advantage of this situation and do things that are harmful.
That's right.
But the police must exercise some level of restraint, and there must be voices of reason brought to this issue. And people must sit down. As a community leader myself, we really have to start asking some hard questions and do some listening before we take action. We must understand that long history. We must understand that people are rightfully aggrieved and they're going through a process of grieving. We must hear the family speaking. And during the day, it seems that those protests are peaceful and are listening. It's at night when others can come in and creep in and stir up mess.
Right.
But there again, the police presence must exercise wisdom.
Now, Attorney Crump, who also represented Trayvon Martin's family, is representing this family, and he called Al Sharpton in both situations to come down and to help. So Sharpton went, from my understanding, down to Ferguson. Because
this is a deeper problem, though. You know, I mean, Al Sharpton, I love Reverend Al. He's fun to cover. I've been on his TV show.
Right.
He's not a panacea either.
No.
You know, the real problem is lack of local leadership.
Absolutely.
You touched on that.
That's right.
And that showed itself in the Miami example, especially because the black community in Miami was devastated by the demographic changes that followed the Cuban exiles.
That's right.
Et cetera. And they had to build black leadership there in order to really have community unity at all. On the opposite end, you have Chicago, where after Dr. King was assassinated, the South Side didn't riot, the West Side did, because you had more organization on the South Side. So it's really, you know, local leadership makes all the difference in the world in this kind of situation.
And I think when people are, we look at the video and we see looting and rioting, and it always just makes you sort of cringe. But, you know, people need to understand, people are angry, they are hurt, they don't have any way to express themselves because they are trying to, and you won't listen because somebody did this and you still shot.
Right.
You know, so they don't, there's no relationship, there's no bond. And so what hurts me is that you are hurting your own neighborhood. You are looting in your own neighborhood. But you know what?
If you don't feel like it's your neighborhood.
If you don't feel like it's your neighborhood.
Ownership.
That's right.
Exactly.
Because the people owning your stores aren't black. The people owning maybe the barbershop, let's hope he's black. You know, but it's, you don't feel that connection.
That's right. Well, my family was, I had cousins all over Detroit there, and during those riots, I mean, you could really tell the people who were doing the property damage were those who felt like they had nothing to lose.
Right, that's right.
Whereas you had a lot, most black folks there were bought in. I mean, it's interesting history of Detroit, you know. But now I was just there for a family reunion here recently, and it breaks my heart to see the devastation because of vacant lots all over the place.
So let's talk about this police chief who just got it wrong.
Yes.
I mean, you know, the situation happens, and I'm sure they were like, oh, whatever. Oh, no, 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 no. Then, like you said, all of a sudden, you know, stuff starts popping up on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Somebody's called CNN, somebody's called the local station. Now you've got a situation. So they continue to mishandle it. And I mean, the most ridiculous thing is this video coming out as if he simultaneously tells us who the police officer is, talks about how gentle he is, how quiet he is. Well, he wasn't quiet and gentle enough to stop shooting a gun. So he wants us to relate to the police officer through human terms, but then he simultaneously shows us this video that shows what allegedly could be Michael Brown being aggressive, and so he's not a victim anymore.
And making it worse, didn't tell Captain Johnson, the black man the governor just put in charge of the whole thing, didn't tell him that they're about to release this video.
No. And
you
use
know,
the
about
whole
undermining the man.
Freedom of Information Act. I had so many FOIA requests I had to release it. Well, the timing seems awful suspicious.
Well, even worse than that, if the Justice Department did in fact tell them not to release it, I think, to be honest with you, the Justice Department should have stepped in and took over. I think at that moment they should have said, look, okay, this is out of control. We're going to take over. And a lot of those people said that. We want somebody from the outside to come in here. So again, once again, if you're going to keep having the same people doing the same thing and expecting different results, we know that's crazy. So I'm saying again, the U.S. Justice Department should step in there, take over that situation, and take over these situations around the country because it is a powder keg. Same way in New York, same way in L.A., all of these places saying we're going to step in because we realize there is a problem in America when it comes down to race and policing.
More of Matthew
That's why
Fogg.
President Obama interrupted his vacation.
It is.
So. Exactly.
More of Matthew Fogg, Clarence Page, and Reverend Cedric Harmon. When we come back, more of our special coverage, Seeking Justice in Ferguson. Stay with us.